Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I'll be going over what players' stock went up and whose stock went down during the Washington Commanders off-season workouts so far. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. Also hit that like button and that notification bell as well. Make sure to check out Mantis Sleep, link in the description. Use code HTTC for 10% off. And just because I have someone on the stock up or stock down part of the list doesn't mean they're going to have a really good or really bad season. So we're going to go over a few players. Haven't really, I've talked about a lot of guys that have done well. Haven't talked about guys that haven't, but let's get into it real quick. We'll start off with some guys that are impressing. Emmanuel Forbes has been impressing a lot in Commanders OTAs, rookie minicamp and minicamp overall. Going up against Terry, Jahan, and mostly holding his own. I think Terry's gotten him a few times. I mean, I'm sure Jahan has, but haven't heard about it a lot. But he's also had a lot of pass breakups. He's gotten his hand on the football a ton. Got an interception or two, but a bunch of pass breakups. And all the media and everyone who's been there have, they've said he's looked legit. So again, that's really good for the Commanders secondary, because if he's legit and if he's able to create turnovers, that really helps out this defense, which they didn't really have a lot of turnovers forced last year. Derek Forrest was the only guy that was able to do it. Maybe 4 or 5 interceptions by Forrest and a forced fumble or something like that. So, or a fumble recovery, not completely sure. But they needed someone. They got Forbes. We'll see how he does. But so far, it looks like he is living up to where they drafted him to. But again, very, very early. But if he's doing well now against Jahan and Terry, I'm really excited to see how he does in 6-7 weeks, in training camp after getting a whole, period of time to go over what he was not doing well in minicamp and OTAs. So Emmanuel Forbes is one of the top guys, and you guys can see some of the quotes here. But yeah, he's looked really, really good, and that's very good for the Commanders. Another guy that's stocked up, I'm not going to get into him too much because I made a whole video about him yesterday. And you guys can go ahead and check that out. It'll be linked at the end of the video. And that is Kalik Hudson. Kalik Hudson has looked really, really good. Logan Paulson says he's the guy that stood out to me the most on defense. And he's looked good in coverage. He's had an interception or two. He also has broken up some screens. So he's one of the guys that is impressing for sure and should be that third linebacker in the rotation behind Cody Barton and Jamin Davis. He should be over David Mayo for sure. He has some position versatility as well. Can play Buffalo nickel if needed. But I don't think he should, because at this point we have so many guys that can kind of play in that role, like Derek Forrest, maybe Percy Butler, maybe Quan Martin, that you don't really need him there. So for me, I just stick him at linebacker and have him as that third guy. And, we'll see how he does. It's his 4th year, but he's been looking good, and that is great to hear for sure. Another guy that his stock is up is Cole Turner for the Washington Commanders. And not because any other tight end is doing bad, but because, he's just looked good this offseason. And this is one of the guys where it's like, okay, we saw it last year. You look good in the offseason. You got hurt. Well, let's see how you look good in the offseason already. Let's see how you look in training camp. If you can stay healthy, and let's see how you do in preseason and the regular season. But I'm very excited about Cole Turner. He's made a lot of splash plays in camp, in minicamp and OTAs. Last year when I was at training camp, I went 3 times. He was only healthy for one of the days. But when I was there, he was probably the best offensive player, skill player that was there. And he was making really, really nice catches, and he just looked amazing. And I was like, man, this guy could do something for us in the future. And I thought maybe even this past year, but then got hurt and it just wasn't, the same when he came back, had a concussion, don't know what else was going on. But I think he could have a big year for them. Or not even a big year, but he could have an encouraging year where he has 300, 400 yards, and you're like, okay, next year, maybe we don't need to keep Logan Thomas, and maybe he can be our tight end 1. But we're a long ways away from that, but I'm excited about the future for Cole Turner. Another guy is Logan Thomas. Have heard great things about Logan Thomas, and this tweets about Logan Thomas and Kalik Hudson, but apparently, from the media, local media guys, they're saying Logan is looking like pre-injury Logan. And you know what? A lot of people were hating on Logan last season, including me. His blocking was terrible, and he wasn't very explosive, but he did have a major injury. He tore his ACL, MCL, and LCL, I believe, and that was after Chase Young's injury. So, and he came back like, well, I don't know, 4 months before, maybe even more, like 6 months before Chase Young did. So, you know, it's understandable that he got off to a slow start. And in the middle of the season, like, he had some really solid games. We had like 50 yards, 60 yards. So his blocking still wasn't there throughout the whole season, but he was getting better in the later part of the season, and they weren't really using him much, especially in the red zone. So, you know, I don't think you necessarily need to see him have 600, 700 yards like he did in his his first year here, because we didn't have a lot of targets then. But he still could get you 400, 500, maybe close to 600 yards and some touchdowns in the red zone and be that tight end one and, you know, work with, you know, Cole Turner. So he's a guy that definitely can be in there. And those are the main guys with the stock up. You know, I'll talk about some other guys as well, because, you know, there are definitely other guys that have looked good. But real quick word from our sponsor from today's video. And huge shout out to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. They make the best sleep masks in the world. They have a bunch of different types that can change temperatures, that can change the sound that you're listening to when you're going to bed and when you're waking up. I've been using it for the last month or so, and it's done wonders for my sleep. My sleep has improved drastically. I've been getting good quality sleep whenever, you know, I'm having a tough time sleeping. I just put the mask on and go to bed, and it's great. So check them out. Use code HTTC for 10% off. Okay, so some honorable mentions, like, you know, obviously Terry, for the most part, from what we've been hearing, he's looked good, and, you know, the connections there with Howell. Same thing for the most part with Jahan. Like we heard, one day he had a mistake, he made up for it and went off in that practice. And I'm trying to think, the running backs for the most part we've heard good things about, with Brian Robinson and Gibson. Haven't heard a ton about them. There was one practice where Robinson has struggled, but besides that, we've heard some solid things about him and the running backs. Offensive line, haven't heard a ton, and it's because, you know, you don't have as much contact, you don't have the pads on, so we won't learn much until later on in the sessions. And I'm trying to think, on defense, heard good things about Chase Young since he came back from mini camp. Same thing for Montez Sweat. And then I'm trying to think, besides that, like, good things about Quan Martin as well. You know, he's looked really, really good. Percy Butler, I probably should have put him in the list. He has looked really good. Let's see if there's, you know, I can pull up a tweet about him, but he's been one of the guys that has impressed for sure. Let's see. Yeah, he had a couple picks. You know, Sam Fortier says Percy Butler has had a strong spring. So the thing is, I don't know how much stock, you know, how much his stock went up, because, you know, he is, you know, there are a lot of good safeties ahead of him in Quan Martin, Cam Curl, Derek Force, but he did have a very, very good, you know, off season so far. Yeah, we'll get into this in a second. Yeah, I think that's kind of mostly the guys I think the stock went up or they've been doing well. Howell, I would say, if I had to give it a rating, maybe like very, very slightly stock up. I think for the most part, kind of what I expected from him in, you know, the early part of the offseason, some up and down days, you know, some parts of the day good, some parts of the day bad, and that's kind of what we've seen from him. But apparently the footwork has looked good, much better than last year, and, you know, being a little bit risky, and that's fine. So I wouldn't really put him in either category, but yeah. So now into the stock down, and kind of going back to that, because, you know, someone that I think maybe their stock went down a little bit, and I'm not completely sure, could be Kendall Fuller. And that's not because of his performance, but they did, you know, draft Emmanuel Forbes. They also drafted Quan Martin, who can play safety, but also can play in the slot. And they have Benjamin St. Juste. So, and Emmanuel Forbes looked great. He's going to play on the outside. They said Kendall Fuller is probably not playing in the slot. So, you know, you're probably putting Quan Martin in the slot or Benjamin St. Juste. So it really depends. I mean, he could be on the bench to start the season, or like not in the starting lineup but still playing a lot. Or you could say Benjamin St. Juste, and you could say that the starting lineup will be Forbes, Quan Martin in the slot, and then Kendall Fuller on the outside. So I really don't know. Maybe you could say slight stock down to Benjamin St. Juste and Kendall Fuller, not because of performance, but just because of Forbes' performance, and bringing him and Quan Martin in, makes it more competitive in that secondary. But again, not performance related at all. One guy though that may be a little bit performance related, Cody Barton. They signed him to be the clear starting linebacker, and he's been working a lot with the twos, and that's probably just because of learning the defense. But still, that's not necessarily a good sign because even if you have to learn the defense, there's not a lot of competition there at linebacker in terms of the depth, and you would like him to be in the starting lineup. Like, there's guys that they signed, on the offense, they're learning a new offense, but they're starting Nick Gates, Andrew Wiley. So, and you combine that with Kalik Hudson looking really good, I think that brings Cody Barton's stock a decent amount down. Probably, more down than anyone on the team, honestly. Next guy, this is not performance related at all, but that is Kashmir Allen. Looked good early on in OTAs, but then had a hamstring injury and didn't practice for like probably over half of OTAs and then all of minicamp. And for an undrafted free agent, this time is so valuable because not only are the coaches not seeing you, but these other guys are getting better and getting exposure to, in front of the coaches. So it's not good. It's not good, but I'm still really, really rooting for him because I said right when they signed him, I think out of all the undrafted free agents, he is the most likely to make the team because of his return ability. So still think he probably has a shot, but would probably say a little bit stock down just because of the injury. And yeah, it sucks, but I think he'll be able to combat it and come back and be able to play pretty well for them and in preseason and camp and potentially make the roster. And besides that, I don't have any clear stock downs. Like, Cody Barton is the main one, and then Kashmir Allen just because of the injuries. Once we get to the pads, we'll really be able to see like the offensive line and like who's struggling there. Like, we haven't heard like really anything with the O-line. Like, I heard early on Ricky Stromberg was working with the 4s, and maybe you could put him in stock down, but then the other day I heard he's in the 2s, so I don't know about that. And then you could, I don't know. It's besides those two, I really don't see anyone else that's a clear stock down, but if there is anyone that I'm forgetting, go ahead and put them in the comments down below. And if there's anyone for stock up that I'm missing, go ahead and put them in the comments down below as well. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and peace.